Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. When I first opened up my YouTube page and Facebook, I was aiming at those people who are involved in politics and religion and knew a little bit about philosophy. I did not try to let everybody know what I'm doing. I did not write much this morning, but I just want to say to you in English. I like to start from the beginning if it's possible. Briefly, in 1967, late 1967, in Damascus University, I wrote لقد كانت in Arabic لقد كانت هزيمة العرب ضرورة حتمية لإنقاذ العالم من حرب فنائية بينما نصرتهم غدا التزام جبري لاستمرار الحياة الإنسانية. And that means the Arabs' defeat was a necessary evil to save mankind from a disaster, while their victory will become an obligation for the survival of the human race. But I wrote that in a book called Al-Hadathan, the two events. It's only two stories, and I never thought of having to end up talking about two faces of Islam, two religions that are in the Holy Quran. I wrote that book and published it in Syria and Jordan in 1970. But then in 1976, I was in the United States. I wrote a book called Watergate, Middle East and the Bible, after Watergate. In that book, I wrote facts and quotations from leaders that made many people very interested in what I'm saying, including them was Senator Walter Mondale. Senator Mondale went to reopen the case of John Kennedy assassination. To make a long story short, I don't want to complicate things here. At that time, I was not an American citizen. So I went and applied for the American citizen in 1977, and it was so easy to become an American citizen. When I saw that, I realized, this is a superpower country, nuclear, all that. How come it's so easy to become an American citizen at that time? I turned it down. I went to campaign for an issue called Aliens' Right to Vote. Legal resident, pay taxes, have to be drafted, have to fight for the country. Living in a superpower country with nuclear bombs can destroy the whole world. So I went to campaign for this issue of aliens' right to vote. I never thought there would be a lot of response, but there was a lot of interest in it all over the country, from all over the country. I kept campaigning for the issue until 1980. But before we get into that, let me just say a couple other things that happens before 1980. I was active, not very active, but I was involved, and I was trying to get on radios and TVs and do other things, and being in the public eye as much as I can. I'll give you a couple of things that happens. 1976, there was a senator called James Rasoul. He's a Lebanese senator, U.S. senator, became a U.S. senator. He came to Cleveland in 1972, and I was invited to ride with him in his limousine then from Cleveland Humpkin Airport to Sheraton Hotel because he was interested in what I have to say. But in 1976, he also came back to give a speech to the Arab community. At that time, President Sadat of Egypt was trying to make peace between him and Israel. President Sadat of Egypt was focused on having to change the minds of the Arabic people at that time. Senator James Abarozo came to give a speech, that speech in 1976 to the Arab community. There were a lot of people there, and I was one of them, one of the youngest people in the group sitting way in the back. Senator James Abarozo said that he read among what he said in his speech, and everybody was clapping for him for attacking President Sadat for trying to make peace with Israel. He said, I read CIA report that Israel have 8 to 12 atomic bombs. The minute he said that, I raised my hands and I wanted to ask him. So he allowed me and I asked him. I said, Senator, you just said that Israel have 8 to 12 atomic bombs, and you read that in the CIA report. He said, yes. Well, I said, if you believe that, and if we all believe that, what do you expect from President Sadat of Egypt to do? In case of a war, Israel can focus on the Syrian front, can surround Damascus in time, while allowing more than half of the Egyptian army marching in the middle of Sinai Desert. Then they pull behind to Gaza and Rafah, Arab cities behind them. Israeli army saved, Damascus surrounded, no one left but 2/3 of the Egyptian army in the middle of Sinai Desert. Hit him with 1 atomic bombs and you wipe them out. So what do you expect from President Sadat of Egypt to do? He did not, the senator did not know how to respond. He said, well, I meant that Israel have missiles. They have to use missiles. I said, America hit Japan with airplanes. I did not want to embarrass the senator. I told him I just wrote a book and I have facts in it. I just want to make sure my facts are good, are right in the book. I came down and gave him a copy of my book, while those audience who were clapping for him attacking President Sadat, giving me a standing ovation and clapping for me now for defending President Sadat, for trying to make peace in Israel. There's things happen when you have logic and common sense and facts. People can understand. So let's go on a little bit further with my case here. When I started campaigning for that issue of Israel's right to vote in 1978, I was not expecting serious problems. I did not know they will take everything I said very seriously. I did not know there was so much guilt and fear. There's a man here who might have some wheels through the alien, for the issue of Ellen's right to campaign, to go to the American people and tell them things they were not supposed to know. It's too dangerous, too risky to tell the American people who killed John Kennedy and Robert Kennedy, who did this and who did that. And this man might have facts and quotations and evidence that can convince anybody. So what they did, FBI formed a sting operation called Arab Scam. An FBI agent posed as an Arab sheik with millions of dollars, trying to trap all the American leaders to know what they know and how they know, what they are receiving, who's mailing them what. I did not know about scam when it started, but it came to light. I also did not know how serious what I'm doing was, even though a professor called Dr. Cassis from Ramallah was helping me. He was my right-hand man in campaigning for that issue. He's a young man and professor from Ramallah, speaks my language, my hometown. Suddenly he's dead. He's dead. I did not think of it much of it at that time. I said he might have had a heart attack. He might have had a heart attack. But in the same period, my first cousins, Sulaiman Awadullah and Salim Awadullah, and their friends got arrested. They were trapped by the ATF, FBI agency, for weapons and what have you. I did not know they were targeting me. I still was not sure about that. And the end of it, the bottom line here, 1980, I got married. And I had to go into hiding according to God's plan. My situation forced me to go into hiding, like God wanted to protect me. There's so much danger around me. He put me in situation, financial and emotional situation, where I had no choice but to go undercover. I did. But in 1982, I still remained writing and mailing my letters to all these senators and leaders everywhere all the time. It's a bad habit. I never quit. So in 1982, two missionaries came to my house, gave me two Mormon missionaries, and gave me a Book of Mormon, put a piece of yellow paper in between the pages and asked me to write certain pages. I said, okay. We talked for a few minutes and they left. I finally read what they want me to read, and I noticed one very important thing there, which says in Nephi 21, Book of Mormon, it says, for in that day, for my sake, shall the Father work a work, which shall be great and marvelous work among them, and there shall be among them those who will not believe it, although a man, one man, shall declare it unto them. I took that statement and started thinking about it. I was writing in 1982, 83, a book called Oh My Sister at that time. It was a challenge between me and a friend, a neighbor. I told him I can write a book of it in 2 weeks. He said, go ahead. He started laughing. I said, okay, I'll dare you. So I started writing, and I gave him the papers, and he types them. Well, in 2-3 weeks, I had a book written, and he was typing next door. It was just a joke, but it turned out to be a good one. It's God's plan. I wrote the book. In that book, in 1983, I was finding things that I need to put on it. One of those things was that statement that was in the Book of Mormon, Nephi 21. I wrote it in the back of the book. But on the cover of the book, I only wrote Operation One for Your Eyes Only. The title of the book, Oh My Sister. Operation One for Your Eyes Only. I did not think much is going to come out of this thing. Well, also 1983, they called the Pope and others called 1983 the year of the Bible. I still did not see anything here into it. 84, I was involved, or 83, 82, I was in touch with senators and congressmen who were involved in the abscam sting operation. And one of those was Senator Harrison William, who had to go to jail. I was in touch with his lawyer, George, from Red Bank, New Jersey, and I was telling them, I'm writing a book called Oh My Sister, and hopefully it'll be out before the end of 1983 or early 1984. Everybody was waiting for that book, it looks like, which I wasn't really sure of that. But what happens in January 84, a week after the book was out, Oh My Sister, I wrote, and I mailed that book, FedEx, registered mail, to many people, including President Reagan, Senator Harrison William, and many others. Senator Harrison William and President Ronald Reagan, the same week, did weird things that start me thinking, what is going on here? Major Secretary of resign. People start resigning in the administration, Ronald Reagan administration. Senator Harrison Williams was supposed to go to jail. But when I told him the book will be there in 2 or 3 days, the lawyer asked for 10 days for the senator to get his personal things together. So the court gave them 10 days. Within the 10 days, they got the book. They went to an appeal court. 3 judges in Red Bank, New Jersey, said to George, his lawyer, at that time, what we have heard is far-fetched to believe. That's all that was on the news. You know, it seems at that time I thought, wait a minute, why would they ask for 10 days now? He was supposed to go to jail a day or 2 days later. But when I told them my book would be there, they asked for 10 days. They got the 10 days. Within them 10 days, they got the book. Then they went to appeal court, and appeal court said what we just heard is far-fetched to believe. At the same time, explosions were going on at the White House. I still did not want to make a fool out of myself. I kept all that knowledge in my head and stayed into my reading and writing and analyzing. From there on, I focused on knowing more. I need to feel safe. I need to know more of what's going on here. There's a lot of question marks that I can't be sure of. There was nowhere to go but the Holy Quran, according to the way I was raised. So I went to the Holy Quran. I started focusing on it more and more and more. Reading, listening. I found in the Holy Quran that there's another religion within the same religion in the Holy Quran. There's so much that people never knew, so much they misunderstand. It did not make sense to me what they were telling us. Anyway, I kept going and reading to know more and more and more. One very important thing I failed to mention. In 1978-79, one of the people I was in touch with as well, that was President Carter. President Carter had received a lot of information from me. I was campaigning for that issue of aliens' right to vote, and I wrote to him and others saying, America went through scandals of assassinations and resignations. Consequently, isolation is the last gate. Either they lock it or we block it. We have a chance if we know the choice. However, sacrifices and time may remain the best response we have if we are to isolate a civil war. Now, statement like this to a president like that have a lot of meanings. America, leaders were being killed, president being pushed out of office. People are losing faith. They don't vote anymore. This is a man on the street, knows that much, and he is out there campaigning for more people to vote and telling them why they need to vote. There is somebody out there trying to separate them from their leaders, isolate them, so that group or that people or that organization can remain in control of the American public through controlling the media. So President Carter found out more information, wanted to know more information. So he got it. He kept insisting on it. He got it. The FBI and CIA thought, wait a minute, we have to tell them what's going on, what had been going on by John Kennedy and Robert Kennedy and Watergate and conspiracies in this within this country, what John Kennedy is saying about conspiracies and all that. We had to face him with it. He can't do anything. FBI and CIA thought he can't do anything because he's running again for president in 1980, and he just made peace between Israel and Egypt. He's not going to destroy all that. And he's not willing to go and face a war in the Middle East, a nuclear war in the Middle East. President Nixon resigned rather than face such consequences. He gave up his presidency to protect America and never told American people that, even though he said that on David Frost Anniversary 1977, the third day, on Wednesday, 7:45, President Nixon was asked, what is the criminal cover-up? And he answered. He said, you want to tell me? He was asking, he was telling David Frost, you want to tell me if you discover an organization or find out about that group of organization that tried to kill Hitler to save 5 million Jews and cover on them a criminal cover-up? And actually, he was saying, okay, I know who killed John and Robert Kennedy, but John and Robert Kennedy, those Catholic leaders, are no less dangerous than Hitler. They would have done to the Jews the same thing Hitler had done to them. You should be calling me a hero now for allowing them to disappear from my face of the earth, because I know who he is. I ran against John Kennedy and Robert Kennedy. I know what's on their mind and what's in their heart. So there's so much I could say. Jimmy Carter, when he knew all these things and much more, he could not face it. He could not believe it. He could not handle it. So he called for that Camp David summit for all American leaders and started talking about the Malays and the Bible and so many other things. He was scared. July 15, 1979, he gave a speech. In that speech, President Carter, I heard it. He was talking pretty much the same thing I was telling him. But assassination, resignation, isolation, Washington is an island. People are losing faith. They're not voting anymore. So I am campaigning for the Israelis' right to vote. But he also was scared. There's a truth he could not say it. He found out so many secrets that American people are not supposed to know about, because if they do, they would have to face a civil war in this country. You just cannot tell the truth about certain things. Knowing the truth, it's an art. It requires, like I told him, sacrifices. The more you sacrifice for the family of the criminal one, the more you protect the innocent in that family from that criminal member of that family. And that's the only way to split the criminal Zionist from the innocent ones. And that was predicted in our Holy Quran. That's what it says. I finally found out so many things that was in the Bible and the Holy Quran about what was going on at that time in 79 and 80, and Republicans spying on the Democrats and the so-called Carter-Pilford papers, Operation Put Your Eyes on You, Operation Simon and Simon, and so many other things. I finally seen it in the Bible, Ezekiel 16. It says, nevertheless, I will remember my covenant with you in the days of your youth, and I will establish a lasting, everlasting covenant with you. The days of your youth, to me, start meaning, wait a minute, in the 80s, 79, I was young. There was a lot of things going on. Could that be what was predicted in the Bible? I will remember my covenant with you in the days of your youth, and I will or shall establish an everlasting covenant with you. When I went to the Holy Quran, Surah Al-An'am 122-24, I found pretty much the same thing here. One man with his message will touch on and isolate the most astonished criminals in the mother of all nations with the help of God. So when you put all these facts together and back them up by quotations from the Bible and the Holy Quran, you end up with knowing that you are in a mission that you were not aware of. Therefore, you end up believing it is God's work. And it also says in John 16 that the Spirit of God shall not do on anything on his initiative. It's what he hears, he will react on. وَأَمَا بِنِعْمَةِ رَبِّكَ فَحَدِّثْ. Well, there's so much that I can say and add. I don't know where to start or to finish here. It has a lot to do with personal things. Well, in 1987, I have to say this, a director of the FBI in Roanoke, Southwest Virginia, walked into my store. My wife was in the store by herself, and he asked her for me. He wants to talk to me. So I went the next day to talk to him, see what's up, what's wrong, what he wants from me. Why would he just walk in suddenly, like he was mad at something, or he just heard something and he wants to know about it right now? So I went and talked to him, and he started asking all kinds of questions. One of the questions he asked me, what do I mean by this interpretation in your Holy Quran about people of the elephant throwing stones? Are you sending any letters to the people in Israel on the West Bank telling them to throw stones at the Israeli army? At that time, there was an intifada, the first intifada, in 1987. And at that time, I just named my daughter Sajil. There's so many things he wants to know, personal things. I said, like he knew everything I was doing. To make a long story short, just before I left, I stayed there for about an hour or more. He put his hand on a file there at that time. He said, Mr. Rasoul, we know everything. Like he's telling me, your file is here. Whatever you write to anyone, we know about it. I said, go ahead, I have nothing to hide. Well, that's why I write to people, because I'm not hiding anything. I kept on going. I had problems. I went back to the FBI in 1994, and I told my life might be in danger. So they went and trapped members of my wife's family, accusing them from for things that did not really have much to do with what's going on. So I let it go. I did not want to say more than I have to at that time because I did not want to get too involved. I need to protect what I was doing here. I'm doing all kind of writings and things. Then, 15 years ago, a letter came to me from Bahrain Embassy, from a lady there, worked there. Her name is Sahar. She is thanking me for all my writings, and to make a long story short, she let me know that a lot of people are aware of what I'm doing. They know what I'm writing to them. Many of them disagree of what I'm doing. It's too hard for them to digest. It's something beyond what they were raised to understand and believe. Then I wrote another book. I was writing another book called The Naked Truth, and I tried to publish that book. In that book, there's a lot of things about the Holy Quran. There were corrections, there were mistakes. I was pointing all of that out. Many Arab ambassadors were objecting to that. One of them was the Sudanese ambassador. He was so angry, he made, him and others made the printing company refuse my book and send it back to me. And they said, I'm sorry, we don't want to get involved in this. It's beyond what we can handle. I took the book back, but I put it on internet under Rasoul and Rasoul, which I took that name from the operation called Simon and Simon. I believe there is much more that I can say to you. A lot of details, a lot of things that got into the way, but I just want to give you samples of what's going on. Because I noticed yesterday there were a lot of people reading or listening to my website in Facebook. I was hoping they do not do that, because that was not for everybody. I hate to say it that way, but it's a fact, because you just cannot know the truth if you're not ready for it. That's why God sent so many religions. That's why God first told them, don't drink while you're praying. Then he said, don't drink at all. So gradual change, it got to take place. And I can do it without going through the people who understand, who in this field, who are professionals in this field, that can believe and understand to back me up. Basically, it's God's work anyway, and it's his job. And nothing can happen without the approval of the leaders on the top. And thank you.